Good afternoon and welcome to our show today. I'm Karen Seitz with the New Life Center, and I am a mentor and teacher for married women to teach them how to find their happiness within, to let their walls down, and finally have the marriage and relationship that they always dreamed of. And today I'm here with David Cope, the founder of a New Life Center. Hi, David.
Hi, Karen.
How are you
Here we
doing
go
today?
again.
Here we go again.
Very exciting always to share these concepts with you and to our viewers, and really just trying to make a difference in people's lives and help women and men make transformational changes in their relationships. I got involved in relationships after my divorce in the year 2000 and really committed to myself that I would find a way to to learn how to build a loving and intimate relationship. And I realized that the things that I was doing when I was married that didn't work were all the things that were being told when I was reading books. These are the things you should be doing, and they didn't work for me. So I had an epiphany that seems kind of obvious right now, is that in order to have a loving and intimate relationship with somebody else, you first have to have a loving and intimate relationship with yourself. So I've spent the last 15 years working with my partner Peggy and at a New Life Center, teaching people, men and women, how to build relationships with themselves so they can have an intimate and loving relationship with themselves. So the foundation to having a healthy relationship from a New Life Center's perspective and the research that we've done over the years is that it first begins with you and feeling good about yourself. So I'm happy to share these concepts and for how to create loving relationships, and ready to go today, Karen.
All right. And just a little background on me as well. I've been doing the work that we teach and applying the concepts that we talk about and teach about in my own life and in my own marriage for the past 4 years. And I also work with other women every single day to teach them how they can do the same for themselves. And again, finally have that marriage that they always dreamed of, that they always wanted. Because about 4 years ago, when I had gotten married to my husband, things didn't just happen and things didn't just work. And I was kind of at a loss and about to have yet another failed relationship. And I was lucky enough to meet David and come into a New Life Center and begin to learn these things. And it completely transformed my relationship with myself and with my husband. And so I'm very passionate about what we have to share because it really works and it's really empowering. So
interesting, Karen, sorry to interrupt you, is that we've never really been taught how to do marriage. I mean, in our culture and society, we get together and we think we fall in love and that's enough. But soon after we get married, the reality sets in and we realize, oh my gosh, I don't know how to do marriage. And it's what we've done at a New Life Center is create a system, a way to understand yourself and build a relationship with yourself, so you have a roadmap and a plan that what is a healthy relationship and what do I need to do and what things do I need to be focusing on so that I can create the marriage that I would always dream of, and not no longer feel lost and feeling like I have no way out or I don't know how to do this marriage thing. So that's what we're trying to do in an overarching way, is to give women in this case a roadmap to create happiness in their marriage. Can you share our foundational principles that kind of tie into this system that we've developed?
Yeah, so the framework for our Facebook group and what David was talking about, the roadmap on how to have a healthy relationship, was much different than what I wanted it to be because our framework boils down to me, or boils down to you, that your relationship is in your hands and this is how. So the first guiding principle of our framework is you are responsible for your happiness, that no one and no thing outside of you can make you happy. I think most of us We know that at a very
Mm.
fundamental level, that no one and no thing can make us happy. But we haven't been taught how to find our happiness within. But when we learn how, and we do find our happiness internally, then everything changes. And our second guiding principle is that you are the only person that you can change, that we only have control to change ourselves. We can't change anything or anyone outside of ourselves. And when we try, or that's our focus, we get really trapped and frustrated and essentially make ourselves victims, powerless to change anything. So when we flip that and realize, yep, the only person I can change is me, and we focus our energy on that, then our experience starts to change out here, and we feel empowered and we feel in charge of our lives. Yeah. And the third guiding principle is that authentic intimacy is really about having a relationship with yourself and feeling good about who you are. And it's from that place that we can drop our walls in our relationship with our husbands, let them back in, let ourselves back in. And then from that place where we're building that intimacy within ourselves first, then we can share that with our partners. And when you're with a good man, everything begins to change. As you re-engage and drop your walls, your husband will step up with you. And that's where you can start to experience these gifts and changes that we're talking about and teaching about.
Thank you, Karen. And just to reinforce what you're saying, the concepts that we're teaching in a New Life Center, our relationship course, are in a very narrowly defined relationship. And often it gets confusing, and we're trying to simplify it. So the concepts that we're teaching are in a relationship where you have two good people at heart that want to have a loving relationship and that have a genuineness to do the right thing and to treat each other well, but you just get confused. And that a woman has her walls up and she's with a good man. So the key is understanding that when a woman has her walls up and she's with a good man, there's certain dynamics that she then can be in control of, because a good man is always a primary interest as a good man is to make their wife happy. But when a woman has her walls up, it pushes the man away, and the woman begins to think that the source of her unhappiness is her husband. So we're trying to narrowly define this so women can have a roadmap that's simple and straightforward and isn't confusing. And, well, what if this, and what about this, and what if this happens? So we're trying to simplify this so we can actually have resolution and build a happy relationship. So what are we talking about today, Karen?
Today we're talking about how to get our husbands to passionately care about us.
Wow.
That's where we're going today. And first, we're going to look at what stops this from happening and what to do about it. So again, you have a roadmap on how to change the issues and problems you're experiencing in your marriage or with your husband.
And also to remind our listeners, the reason why all of our videos about women and what they can do in their marriage, or the things that they're not doing that they can change, is, first of all, as women in relationships, the only person you can change is yourself. And trying to change your husband is really futile. Mm-hmm. So if the only person you can change yourself is, what things can I identify about my behaviors that I might not be aware of or that are unconscious, that I can see in myself so that I can make different choices and realize maybe if I can make these choices and change these behaviors that I'm in control of, that have nothing to do with my husband, maybe my relationship can change, because that empowers me to be a victor in my relationship, to be empowered to be in control rather than feel like I'm a victim and at the will of life or my husband, or that somehow you're stuck and powerless.
Wonderful. That's the experience. And I just kind of piggybacking off what David was saying, I know how challenging it is to begin to hear these concepts and to realize that we have to see ourselves as the problem in order to empower ourselves to change. And I've had plenty of temper tantrums and pushbacks over needing to take 100% responsibility for myself and my experience of myself in my relationship. But I promise you that when you are willing to do that for yourself and experience it, it doesn't work to just contemplate it, because you'll run up against 1,000 reasons why it won't work. You have to step in and experience these things. And as you do, you realize it works, and it works really quickly, like almost overnight. My marriage went from headed straight to a divorce to a working partnership where there was love and connection in a very, very short period of time, after I had tried a gazillion different things, including books and traditional marriage counseling. So it is a tough pill to swallow. But when you're willing to put in that work and empower yourself, this really does work. So just wanted to add that as we jump into the topic.
Yeah. So you did a post yesterday that may have a lot of women struggling with. What was the theme of the post, and how did that lead into our topic today?
Yeah, and it was actually just this morning. And the theme of the post is that there was a comment in the group, which is a very common comment I get from clients, and a question that comes up a lot in our Facebook group of this. The responsibility falls all on the woman. Where's the man's role or the man's part? And what the post is talking about is that at a very deep level, and a lot of times unconsciously, as women, a lot of times we get married because we want to be taken care of. And when we want to be taken care of, all of our walls go up, and that creates a lot of issues in our marriage. And so that's the gist or the theme of what the post is about.
So the idea is over the years of research and study at New Life Center and working with common themes among women, we've identified these patterns that may be unconscious for a lot of women. But one of the themes that we've uncovered is that many women get married to be taken care of, to have security, so they don't have to carry the burden of life on their shoulders. Interestingly, these very same women, when they were single, were very independent and were able to take care of themselves. For some reason, once they get married, all of a sudden they stop trying, and they want their husbands to take over and be responsible for themselves. And sometimes that's hard for women to understand within themselves. But when women want their husbands to be taken care of, when women want their husbands to take care of them, what they're basically saying is, I don't want to be responsible for myself and my life. I want the responsibility placed on my husband. And what happens when women stop taking care of themselves and put the responsibility on somebody else, it makes them feel very uncomfortable and insecure within themselves. And some of the things we wrote down, Karen, were, can you make lists what happens to women when they all of a sudden, maybe unconsciously, get married and want their husbands to take care of them? How do they end up feeling inside of themselves?
Well, we end up feeling unlovable. We end up feeling wrong. We feel bad. We feel bitter and resentful. And then we put all of that on our husbands. And David, I also have the list of why at that unconscious level we want to be taken care of, and we want our husbands to take care of us. If you want me to read that.
Okay, sure. Yeah. So before you go into that, can you read that list again?
Sure.
When a woman wants a man to take care of her at some unconscious level, how does she end up eventually feeling inside of herself? Can you read that list again?
We feel unlovable. We feel wrong. We feel bad. Meaning we feel like there's something fundamentally bad about us.
Mhm.
We feel bitter and resentful. And then we put all of that onto our husbands, thinking they're making us feel that way, when really we're feeling that way because we're putting the burden of being taken care of on our husbands.
Yeah. So what happens is unconsciously women project onto their husbands that they are the source of this unhappiness and this feeling of wrong and unlovable and everything inside them. So they put their walls up to protect themselves because they feel that their husband is the source of them causing them to feel, but at a very fundamental unconscious level, it dwells in the unconscious awareness that I want my husband to take care of me, to provide security, and that causes the mind to project onto the husband as a source, not realizing that women are creating that by wanting their husband to be taken care of. So, what was the list that you were suggesting we read earlier?
That that these are the reasons, the unconscious reasons. Again, I think it's always a really good reminder when we're talking about these things that this is what's happening unconsciously. And when we're willing to lift up the rug, so to speak, and look at these things, that's where we give ourselves the real chance to change and to experience ourselves in a whole new way. But I have to be willing to get really honest with myself and to see these things. Otherwise, they're going to continue to be going on and I can't see them, and then I can never do anything about them.
Thank you.
So it's not that we are bad or wrong or malicious. This is just normal human behavior. And when we can understand that and look at it, then we can give ourselves a whole new life. And that sounds really counterintuitive, but that's exactly how it works every single time. So these are the unconscious reasons of why we want to be taken care of, that until we look at, we can't do anything about it. So one is, we don't want to be responsible for our lives. We want our husbands to do everything for us, to provide us everything that we don't want to provide or do for ourselves. We play small and hide and pretend we can't do things in order to get our husbands to do them for us. We want our husbands to shield us and protect us from the things we don't want to do. We want our husbands to be responsible for bringing love and care into the relationship so we don't have to. And we want to seem like a good partner, appearing to be independent and getting praises for seemingly being independent to the outside world. And this is what's going on underneath that we can't see, that we need to be able to be honest with ourselves about and realize that it's okay and realize that that's normal. Mm-hmm. And there's something we can do about it.
That's right.
And when we do something about it, it feels really good. And we start to have a whole new experience.
So Karen, in your experience in working with many hundreds of women over the years, how common is this narrative with the women that you work with?
It's really common. Most of the women that I work with can see and understand this experience of themselves. It's definitely very humbling and very vulnerable when they get to this place within themselves. But once they're willing to go there and see it, there's almost a sense of relief, because at some level they knew this was in them. They just kept pushing it away and pretending it wasn't there. So when they are able and willing to go there and see this about themselves, initially it's very vulnerable and it feels very raw. And then they feel very hopeful and very relieved, because they can start stepping into their lives anew and truly learn how to be independent and truly learn how to take care of themselves instead of just pretending.
Thank you, Karen. So when, as women, and when you want your husband to take care of you, what happens over time, the dynamics, eventually, because you want your husband to take care of you, women begin to feel like they're the only ones that are doing anything in the relationship, And there's a sense of I have to do everything myself and nobody cares about me. And it's an interesting dynamic to realize why women so commonly feel like their husbands don't do anything, and the whole burden of the marriage relationship is on me. And if nothing gets done, the woman feels totally responsible for the relationship. And the reason why that is because they don't want to take care of themselves. They're and want their husband, they're not taking care of themselves and doing the things they need to do to nurture themselves. And that causes them to have to put their walls up to protect themselves against their husband. And eventually they push their husbands away. And what happens is they feel like everything is burdened on them. But ultimately, the reason why women feel like the burden of their marriage is on them, and their husband doesn't care about them or isn't doing the thing, is because they feel like they have to take care of their husband, and which is this dynamic which starts with, I'm not taking care of myself and want my husband to do it for me. And when this happens, is it builds this victim mentality. Is that because I'm feeling this way, I'm blaming my husband for why I'm feeling this way, and I'm putting the burden and responsibility on my husband for why he isn't doing anything. But it all stems from this root cause of that I don't want to take care of myself, and I want somebody to take care of me. But this is hidden under everything that we've been talking about.
Well, and I know for myself as well, just in the work that I've done and having to look at how I want to be taken care of, and I would start to put my husband first and do all the things for him, hoping I would get that back in return. Is then I feel the real issue is then I feel like a burden to myself.
Yeah.
That I become a burden to me. And it's often we don't want to see that because we want to think we're above that or better than that, or no, that's not me. But if I'm feeling like a burden to myself, then of course I'm not going to want to do the things that I need to do for myself and put that on somebody else.
And one of the videos we did recently was how women in marriages get really busy so they don't have to feel and be connected to themselves and their issues. Part of being busy is I don't have to look at myself and do the things for myself. That kind of ties in also when women want their husbands to take care of them. They eventually what happens is that they feel like they have to take care of their husbands, and gives them the opportunity to say, well, I can't take care of myself because I have to take care of my husband. And we get this pattern of incongruent thoughts and that are creating this downward spiral, because the woman begins to feel helpless and powerless to make any changes, caught in this trap of not taking care of herself ultimately.
And with a good man, and I know this with my husband, it's tried and true, he wants me to take care of myself, because when I take care of myself, I feel good about myself and I'm happy. And all he wants for me as a good man is for me to be happy. So for a long time, I was caught in this story of I can't take time for myself. I can't do the things I need to do for myself, because if I do, my husband's going to be upset with me and feel left behind or forgotten about. And that is the furthest thing from what happened. My husband encourages me once I've dropped my walls and I'm showing up kind in the relationship. He encourages me to do the things that I need to do for myself and to take care of me. And he can take care of himself. And I know that now. And when I do that, then I'm happy, and he benefits from that because he feels safe to be engaged and present in the relationship because I'm happy. And so I'm treating him kindly.
It's really simple. So the opposite of wanting to be taken care of, it creates a feeling of burden and responsibility on the woman's part, and they feel unloved and uncared for, is beginning to take responsibility for yourself and your own happiness. But what you really want your husband to do is not to take care of you, but actually to care for you. So the shift in perspective here is not wanting your husband to take care of you, but actually to care for you. So what can we talk about what that means, and how does a woman get her husband to start caring for for her, and as we said, passionately? And can you share a little bit how that works?
Yeah. So again, when we have our walls up, then we push our husbands away. And good men, and again, a good man, it doesn't mean a perfect man. Good men have flaws too, but at a fundamental level, by nature, they are kind, they're
Mhm.
trustworthy, they're reliable, they're hardworking. And when, as women in relationships, when we put our walls up and we push them away, they begin to retreat from the relationship because they don't feel safe to be there, because they're waiting again to be told that they're wrong, or that they're not doing it right, or be pushed away. So they begin to withdraw. And then we don't see all the good qualities about them. So when we begin to drop our walls and let them back in, and show up vulnerable and as ourselves with them, then they re-engage in the relationship. And I promise that they're there waiting to care for you and to be there. They want that as good men. And so when we take our walls down and let them back in, you will begin to notice that your husband is thoughtful, that he's kind. I've noticed my husband, as I've dropped my walls, he adores me. He just wants to be there and do anything and everything he can to show me that he cares. And so you begin to really be a team and work together on things. And David, you might have a couple more things written down on your page that I missed about how a husband is caring.
Well, remember, when you want to be taking care of women, you makes you feel bad about yourself, and you're projecting on your husband that he's the source. But when you drop your walls and want to be responsible for your own happiness, then what happens, it allows your man, who's a good man, who wants primarily for your happiness, to start caring for you. And caring for you means my list is he's thoughtful and kind, he's available,
Yeah.
sensitive, and like you said, adores. I mean, these are all the things that come out of me when in relationship, when my partner's walls are down, and I'm eager to express myself and feel safe to come out and being willing to be engaged in the relationship. What's the problem, Karen, that women in their minds, what do they tell themselves why they don't want to drop their walls? Why is it so scary for them to imagine, well, if I drop my walls, then I'm going to get hurt and I'll be vulnerable? What did those what are some of the things that women think about why their mind tells them, oh, no, don't drop your walls?
Yeah, we don't, like you said, we don't want to be hurt. So we tell ourselves if we drop our walls, we're just going to be hurt and crushed. We want to avoid pain. That I know in myself and the majority of the women that I've worked with who are very honest and open about these things, we're major pain avoiders. We do not want to face emotional pain. We don't want to face challenging feelings and emotions. We don't see the value in being vulnerable. That a lot of times we think our strength comes from having our walls up, and we have a belief or a story that when we're vulnerable, that's weak. We'll just be taken advantage of. That's the next one. And the biggest one is links into what I just said, is that we misconceive our walls as our protection, that our walls are what protect us in life. So if I let those walls down, I'm just going to be annihilated. And we really do think that that's where our strength comes from. And I don't know if this is a good time in our conversation, David, but I have a story to share about a client that I worked with for a while, and we started to approach and begin to work on her taking her walls down. and this is her language, and it does show up with a lot of the clients that I work with. I know it in myself, but she was working on her experience of herself having her walls up was being a bitch. And we were coming up against that. And I was working with her to try to help her to let that go. So let that behavior pattern go. And she came up against a lot of pushback with me and did not want to let that go. That she saw being a bitch and having her walls up were what allowed her to get what she wanted in life, to be successful in her career, to not get taken advantage of, and to not get ran over. And her faith as a Christian is in God. And I was trying to help her see, can you imagine that who you are in your true self, who you are as an expression of God, would never be a bitch, that would not be where your strength comes from, that your strength would actually come from being Christ-like, which is kind, forgiving, sincere, accepting, and caring, that's where our true strength comes from. And that was really, really difficult for her to see. In fact, she didn't want to. She was dead set and no, I cannot let this go. And that's come up, David, with quite a few clients where we really do think that's where our strength comes from, not the other way around, and that our strength comes from our ability to just be who we are and our kindness and care and acceptance.
Thank you, Karen. One of the challenges to segue from that is why do I want to be vulnerable, and what's the problem and the challenge of that? Brene Brown, an author, does a wonderful job of talking about the value of vulnerability. And the true value of vulnerability is that we begin to know ourselves and we put ourselves out into life, risking being hurt. And it's in that risk of being hurt and being vulnerable is when we truly know who we are. And also it teaches us in being vulnerable when we drop our walls is to grow and learn, and that realizing that pain that we are trying to avoid by closing our hearts and putting walls up is actually that which makes us stronger. And when we are able to see pain as a normal experience of life and not to avoid it, it causes us to grow and strengthen ourselves internally. So we don't need the walls to protect us as our strength. Our strength comes in the vulnerability of being willing to step out and risk being hurt, but strengthening us so that we have confidence to handle those life experiences in a healthy, constructive way, which creates an understanding of who we are and building a relationship with ourselves. So maybe we could post a link to Brene Brown's TED Talk about vulnerability so women can see the intrinsic value of dropping their walls to grow and learn to know themselves, and that their true strength comes from growing in and experiencing himself and understanding that pain is an opportunity to grow and expand rather than something that we should hide from and avoid.
Yeah,
So
you can definitely post that.
So what's the benefit of dropping their walls and wanting to be responsible for a person's life and taking responsibility for their habit? What's the benefit that a woman can gain from dropping her walls?
Yeah. We can be authentic, meaning we can be free to be our true selves. And I know for me, with my walls up, I was pretending to be authentic, which was very exhausting because I had a lot of different hats and masks that I had to wear to present myself as authentic, covering up what was really going on inside of me. So as I've dropped my walls, then I really can just be me, and it's effortless, and it's a really freeing feeling.
And then that's a place of self-acceptance. When I can know myself, I accept myself. And then the beauty of that, when you can accept yourself, you then can accept your partner. But when you have your walls up and don't accept yourself because your mind is telling you that deep inside you feel wrong or bad or broken, then what happens, unfortunately, is you project on your husband. But when you accept yourself by dropping your walls and knowing who you are, all of a sudden you see all the wonderful and things about your husband that you fell in love with him originally.
It's true. And it's a lot, it's really freeing to accept your husband as well. And for me, I was always trying to change every little thing about my husband and wanting him to be perfect because I had such a huge expectation on myself to be perfect. And as I've just been honest with myself and see the things that are hard to see about me and the flaws that I have within myself, then it's such a loving experience that I have of me. And then I can share that with my husband and not want him to be anyone different than who he is. And it really is just about the most freeing experience that you can ever have of yourself.
Thank you. That was very vulnerable.
Yeah.
And interestingly, just, thank you for sharing from your heart, Karen, is we think being vulnerable is a weakness or that people will think less of us. But what I've learned is that when we are vulnerable and we open our hearts, people begin to trust us and see us and believe in us, and really the connection gets closer rather than I'm sharing all my icky stuff inside. People won't like me, but actually it's just the opposite. When we're vulnerable, people trust us and they see our genuineness and caring. So thank you, Karen, for being vulnerable on our call today.
Yeah, it makes us relatable.
Relatable.
Instead of trying to pretend like we've got it all together, because we don't, let's be honest. And it's a lot easier to just accept that and work through those things than to try to pretend. So that's the next one on our list of why the benefit of dropping our walls is we don't have to pretend anymore, that we can live life genuinely, and that creates a much deeper connection with ourselves and with every relationship that we have. Another is we feel good about ourselves, and not just short bursts of feeling good about ourselves because we accomplished something or we got praise or validation externally, but this underlying constant experience of feeling good about ourselves that's almost unshakable because we're doing what we need to do for ourselves in our lives and feeling good about ourselves and not constantly shielding. We open ourselves up to life. And when we can do that and we begin to build self-confidence and value within ourselves, and we consistently feel good about ourselves. We can be kind and sensitive and caring and not just pretending, again, not pretending to be those things, but genuinely where it just comes out. There have been times where I do something very kind in my relationship and it's like I didn't even think about it. It just naturally occurred and naturally happened.
And just to interrupt for a moment, sorry, there's a big difference between pretending that you're kind and trying to pretend that you're nice, as opposed to be genuinely kind and genuinely nice. And good men can feel the difference when you're trying to be nice and genuine being caring and kind.
Yeah, they can absolutely tell. When I'm pretending or trying to be kind, I get very little response from my husband. Mm-hmm. And then I start to feel frustrated and upset with him, which is great because then that's my benchmark to know, okay, I've got my walls up and I'm not being genuine. Yeah. When I'm genuinely kind, he is right there and responds in kind.
Yeah. And when you're trying to be kind, you want to get something in return. So if I'm kind, then I expect my husband to react a certain way. And you build up these expectations. But when you're genuinely kind and genuinely caring, then you have no expectations and you just do it. And you're never disappointed because you're doing it for your own experience of yourself. And it makes you feel good when you're kind, makes you feel good. And then you get the benefit is your husband gets the real benefit of you genuinely being kind.
And the next is of why the benefits of dropping our walls and why we want to do that is that we actually get to have a loving an intimate relationship with our husband. And we can grow and learn, which is what makes life exciting and engaging. That, again, kind of seems counterintuitive, but when I'm willing to face just the normal experience of hurt or even rejection or heartbreak in life, when I'm willing to embrace that and know that that's a part of life, then I actually get to use those experiences as a way to, and more so as an opportunity to grow and to learn. And it's those things that add a stimulation to life and to make things exciting, and we feel engaged. And this leads into the last one, is then we know what to do for ourselves, that we don't get lost in running around in panic or not knowing how to deal with the rigors of life or the challenges or the loss or the heartbreak that comes up. We know what to do, even if it's going to be a hard work or challenging. It's kind of, I have this experience in myself where it's like, okay, deep breath, roll up my sleeves. I know I can do this. I know what to do for me. And I can only experience these things when I take my walls down. Otherwise, I'm just shielding from life and waiting for the worst to happen and not able to genuinely just be me.
Thank you, Karen. That's wonderful. Could you kind of wrap up for us today?
Yeah.
What's the message we want to communicate today to our listeners?
So what we're really talking about today, again, our title was how to get our husbands to passionately care about us, that there's a difference between being taken care of and being cared for. And when we come from a place of wanting to be taken care of by our husbands because we feel like a burden and we don't want to be responsible for our life and we don't want to be responsible for the things that we need to do, we put that burden and expectation on our husbands, which they can, if I can't take care of myself, there is no way that anyone else, including my husband, is ever going to be able to take care of me. And so what happens is I build resentment. I begin to feel unlovable and wrong and bitter. And I project that onto my husband, that he's the cause of my unhappiness and of my pain. So I put my walls up. And when we do that and we're with a good man, then they pull away and they shut down in the relationship. So when we do the work to take our walls down by learning how to take care of ourselves, learning how to have a relationship with ourselves, then our husbands feel safe to re-engage. And then they show up caring for us, which is a huge difference. So they want to be there. They want us to be happy. And so when we have our walls down, they can be caring because they feel safe to. So then they're thoughtful, kind, available, sensitive. And the biggest kicker for me, which I wasn't expecting, is they just adore you. Because when we have our walls down, we can show up as who we really are as women. We can be soft. I mean, Peggy's definition of soft is strength without fear. So we can be soft, we can be feminine and nurturing and all the wonderful things that make us real women. And our husbands are just waiting for us to show up as who we really are in that. And so when we do, there's wonderful benefits waiting for us. We can be who we truly are. We find the value and our strength in being vulnerable. We feel good about ourselves. We don't have to pretend anymore. We can live genuinely. We can be genuinely kind and loving and sensitive. We have a roadmap to life and our relationships to know how to handle the ups and downs, always knowing what to do for ourselves. And we embrace growing and learning in life, which gives us an exciting life and a life that we're engaged in and want to be in, where we feel alive and confident in ourselves and believe in ourselves. And from that place, we get to share who we really are in our marriages, which turns everything around and finally gives us the relationship that we want.
And we've always dreamed of.
And always dreamed of.
Yeah.
Yeah. So if you're at a place and you're listening to this and realizing, wow, I can see this in myself. And like I said in the beginning, it's a tough pill to swallow. These aren't easy or fun things to see about ourselves. But when we do, we actually give ourselves the opportunity to to create real change and to be in charge of our lives. So if you're struggling with wanting to be taken care of, struggling with those feelings of being resentful and bitter in your relationship, and you want to learn more on how you can take down your walls and how you can finally have the roadmap and the how-to on how to have a successful, happy, healthy, loving, intimate marriage, then private message me and we'll just set up a time to talk. We'll just have a conversation and help get you really clear on what's really going on in your marriage that's stopping you and creating those feelings of feeling trapped and frustrated, and give you the roadmap of the how-to to get on the other side of that and to take down your walls. So again, if that speaks to you and you want to have a conversation, then private message me and we'll set up a time to talk.
Thank you so much, Karen. This is exciting to share. Thank you for our listeners, and thank you, Karen, for being so vulnerable today. And one of the things at a New Life Center that's important for all of our teachers is that we're true teachers, that we're actually doing the work in our marriages and our relationships, and we're learning and growing through them and sharing this with you. And thank you, Karen, for being yourself and being true to yourself. So have a good day, and bless you, all of our listeners. Thank you, and have a good day.
Yeah, see you next
Bye-bye.
time. Thank you.